Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome into Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for being here on Monday, March 10th. It is legal tampering day. Officially, legal tampering starts at noon today. There was a ton of NFL news over the weekend. Myles Garrett becomes the highest paid non-quarterback in football by a wide margin. $40 million per year sticking around in Cleveland. Unbelievable deal for him. But that wasn't really going to impact the Jaguars' plans. But there were things that happened that certainly could impact the Jaguars' plans in a big way. So we're going to dive into that today. Again, legal tampering starts at noon. The Jaguars, they were very active when it comes to reshaping their roster last week. Cleared a ton of cap space to get up over $62 million in available cap space, according to overthecap.com. And, Christian Kirk, now a Houston Texan. Evan Ingram, now a free agent. Mitch Morse, now retired. And now the updated number from overthecap.com, $60.977 million for the Jaguars in 2025 salary cap space. They also cut Josh Reynolds, Devin Duvernay, Ronald Darby. So the Jaguars, they were busy. And they're not making these moves. They're not clearing this cap space to sit on their hands. That is not going to be the plan. And I think that you're going to see a very active and aggressive team, but they're not going to be throwing money at anyone willy-nilly. They are going to be very intentional about the players that they look to sign. They're going to be very intentional about the people that they're trying to bring into this building. You hear it often when you hear James Gladstone talk. Intangibly rich individuals, right? So that's what they're going to be looking for. Talented, intangibly rich individuals that will elevate the Jaguars ecosystem, aka culture. So Jags, they got a lot of cap space. They've got a fair amount of needs now that they cleared out a lot of cap space. They had a few needs before that, certainly, but it's looking like this is going to be an aggressive team in free agency and the draft, obviously. So getting into it, Davante Adams, who is a player that, would have been nice to see here in Jacksonville to complement Brian Thomas Jr., but I didn't necessarily think it was likely. Didn't have a clear connection point with the Jaguars' current regime. Was rumored to want to go back to the West Coast. So he lands with the Rams. And that could impact another domino, certainly with the Cooper Kupp situation. I think he'll be released. I don't think a team is going to trade for him. I think he's going to be released and would not be surprised to see him in Jacksonville. He has dealt with injuries the last couple years. There's no question about it. But I guess the beauty in, if you do pursue a Cooper Kupp who's an injury-prone player, he doesn't have to be your offensive engine at the wide receiver position. You have that in Brian Thomas Jr., right? He's just a complementary piece who can help out in a lot of ways. And has a lot of familiarity with what Liam Cohen would want to do, how he coaches, James Gladstone, etc. But Davante Adams to the Rams, certainly a domino. DK Metcalf to the Steelers, another player who I didn't expect the Jaguars to be in on. You're having to give up a ton of draft capital. Steelers had to give up a second-round pick, which I know folks are like, only a second-round pick for DK. DK Metcalf, in my mind, is like a top 15 receiver. He's not a top 5 receiver. He's not a top 10 receiver. On his best days, yeah, he is. But he's limited. He's not going to run the full route tree effectively. He's not a true alpha, like number one that does everything for you. He's a vertical threat. And that's awesome. And that's fun. And pairing DK with Brian Thomas Jr. would be a lot of fun. There's no question about that. Trevor Lawrence throws a great deep ball. But when you look at giving up a second round pick and then giving out a $30 million per year contract extension, that's a lot to give up for somebody who you think is a little bit limited probably and doesn't do everything you want a top receiver to do in your offense. So that's kind of where I fell on DK, and the Steelers got him, and good for them. That's going to be exciting to see him and and George Pickens together out there. Whoever's throwing them the football, we'll find out. But DK Metcalf not going to be coming to Jacksonville. Now, as I mentioned, Cooper Kupp, I think he will be released. That's kind of how I'm viewing it. I think there's a pretty good chance Jacksonville is high on the list, and he's high on their list, and they're high on his list, I would guess. But I think the top target for the Jaguars and a lot of teams, if you don't see a contract come in before noon today, is going to be Chris Godwin, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers receiver. And yes, he is coming off of an ankle injury, but I'm not viewing Chris Godwin in the same realm as I'm viewing a Cooper Kupp or even a Christian Kirk from an injury-prone standpoint, because he's been extremely productive and mostly very healthy throughout his career. He's 29 years old, so he's getting close to that 30 number, but he's still playing at an extremely high level. I think that Chris Godwin makes a lot of sense for the Jaguars because, A, he was in Liam Cohen's offense last year and was having maybe not his very best year, but one of the best years of his career in Liam Cohen's offense. He will block. He's physical. He's athletic. He's got great hands. Yak guy. Helps you on screens. All that stuff. So Chris Godwin, yeah. I think that he will be number one on the Jaguars list. I absolutely do. Will they be able to land him? How much will it cost? I think it'll be $25 to $30 million. It's not going to be like a 5-year deal probably or a 4-year deal, but probably 3 years with an out after year 2. And I think that is the timeline that makes the most sense for the Jaguars from a money standpoint, because in a few years, you're going to want to pay Brian Thomas Jr. In a couple years, Trevor Lawrence's deal hits. In a couple years, Trayvon Walker potentially. Like, there's some money down the road that the Jaguars need to allocate to other players. So, like, signing a DK and having him on the books for 5 years, I don't know that makes the most sense for the Jaguars. But Chris Godwin on the books for 2 or 3 years, I think is a better timeline and just a better fit for the offense as well. Now, the Jaguars also have guard center needs. Mitch Morse retires, starting center. Brandon Sheriff, starting right guard, is set to hit free agency. So at center, Drew Dahlman is the top prize and somebody who I value extremely highly. He would be my top free agent for the Jaguars of any position. And then you also have Coleman Shelton, who played with the Rams, has some ties to this organization. He could be a potential option. I don't think that you view Coleman Shelton and Drew Dahlman in the same realm as players in the same tier. I think Drew Dahlman is a long-term plan at center. I think Coleman Shelton would be a stopgap plan at center. Tevin Jenkins, James Daniels, Mekhi Becton, Will Fries at guard are options that could make a lot of sense for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You look at safety. I think the Jaguars need 2 starting safeties. My guess is they will sign one and probably pursue one in the draft and then get into offseason activities and all that. And then maybe they try to sign a different veteran if things aren't going well with your draft pick and maybe some of the other safeties on the team, because there are safeties on the team right now. But Javon Holland, top prize of the safety group, and has the connection to Jacksonville with Anthony Campanile. That would be an amazing fit. Justin Reed, I would love as well. I think he's very underrated. Cam Bynum and Trayvon Merrick are both very good starters in this league as well. Andre Cisco, could he be somebody that the Jaguars decide they want to bring back? I'd be surprised at this point. Quite frankly, I think they want someone that has a little bit more consistency to their game. Andre Cisco, at his best, is a big-time ball-hawking, playmaking, free safety, but there's always been a little bit more volatility than you would like. And then this year, way too much volatility. At cornerback, the Jaguars have a big need opposite Tyson Campbell, Jarian Jones in the slot, but Carlton Davis has been heavily connected to the Jaguars. I think if you're looking somebody in that mold, Charvarius Ward also makes sense. DJ Reed is set to be a free agent, who I'm a huge fan of from the New York Jets. Byron Murphy from the Vikings. There's 2 Vikings guys in the secondary that could make sense. And maybe they bring over both of them. Who knows? But I definitely think the Jaguars are going to be active at safety and cornerback. I think they should be active at edge 3. I'm not positive that they will be, but there are a lot of edge players set to hit free agency. I've always been high on Azeez Ojulari. You've got Zadarius Smith, just got cut by the Lions. You've got Hassan Reddick, who is intangibly rich. I'm not sure after what happened last year in New York. You've got DeMarcus Lawrence. You've got Charles Omenihu. You've got DeMarcus Walker, who's a local kid, went to Florida State. Chase Young, forgotten man, had a pretty decent season in New Orleans. Josh Sweat, obviously, is set to hit the market. I think some of these names you can probably rule out. I think you can probably rule out Reddick. I think he fits from a what you need perspective as a designated pass rush, but I think that he'll probably be a starter. I think that Chase Young will probably be a starter somewhere. I think that Josh Sweat will probably be a starter somewhere, but that's still a long list of names that could potentially fit with the Jaguars, and we didn't even go over all of them. There's a lot of edge rushers about to hit free agency. Do they surprise and make a swing on an interior defensive lineman like Milton Williams? Again, I said surprise for a reason. To me, the best play right now still is address interior of your offensive line heavily in free agency, and then also do it in the draft, but not in the first round, going after Mason Graham, the interior defensive lineman, in the first round of the draft at 5 overall, and having the law firm of Mason & Mason long-term with Eric Armstead there as a stopgap option this year. But Milton Williams, certainly someone you can build around as an interior pass rusher. So it's going to be fascinating to see what the Jaguars do here, and I think that they will be active in the news in the next few hours. Starting at noon Eastern time, the legal tampering period opens up. I would not be surprised to hear some news about the Jaguars very quickly, but stay patient. Free agency officially opens on March 12th at 4 p.m. So that's when new signings can become official. As of right now, or as of the start of the legal tampering period, most of these signings, unless players were released like a Devontae Adams, will be unofficial. They'll be agreed to terms type situations until signing day, which is on Wednesday. And that'll do it here. Very excited for the start of free agency legal tampering period. Let me know what you're looking for the Jaguars to do in the comment section below. And if you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.